There are so many who are deathly afraid of this upcoming 2020 US election. Whether you're worried about Donald Trump's lies and racism and general buffoonery, or if you're worried about Joe Biden and maybe his connections to the deep state. It doesn't really matter. I totally understand where you're coming from. But this is what I like to say to that. Who's more powerful, Donald Trump or the universe? Who's more powerful, Joe Biden and his sponsors or the universe? In this video, we're going to dive in deeper to help you finally relax about this and many of the other things that we worry about in today's society. And I'm also going to be performing a fear relief activation. So let's go ahead and get started. One of the best ways to overcome fear and worry of current events is to move from 3D consciousness to 4D to 5D consciousness. As you take each step, your worries, your concerns become lesser and lesser. So let's break that down a little bit. In the 3D experience, we require external services and external help in order to survive. We rely on leadership and government to help us because we consider ourselves to be very limited three-dimensional beings that cannot control their environment and depend on their environment for safety, for happiness, for survival, for thriving. We feel that our wishes have to be represented by those in power so that we can survive and thrive. When we decide that our fate and the fate of those that we care about are in the hands of unpredictable, selfish, and maybe even insane people, we have an extremely difficult time finding any peace. We wish that someone would take over who had our best interests in mind. And when we engage in wishing, then we are also existing in a state of scarcity, of lack, of deficiency. And what's wrong with being in a state of scarcity? When we're in a state of scarcity, we bring more of that into our lives. If we are in a state of abundance, we bring more of that into our lives. As we move from 3D consciousness to 4D consciousness, we start to realize that we have a lot more power than we thought we did. That our leaders also have less power than we thought they did. They generally are just figureheads, and the subtle changes that they make generally don't have as huge of an impact as we think that it will before we see them come into power. We also start to, in the 4D consciousness, we start to realize that we are Source and that everyone else is too. The 3D believes that Source is a separate entity and that we are just his children. But in the 4D consciousness, we start to realize, wait a minute, everyone is Source. We are Source. All the rocks and the trees and the plants and the buildings and the stars and the planets. Everything is us as Source. And when we come into that realization, we discover that those that we fear are just us in a different form, and that we've created them so that we could experience all of this chaos, all of this craziness, and all of the amazing things that we get to experience here, just to experience it. Why is all this chaos and this craziness amazing? Because it's all made of one thing, unconditional love. That's what you're made of, that's what I'm made of, and that's what even those that we despise are actually made of, because that is the only thing that exists in the universe. And those that are in power, those that are making the decisions that we're afraid of, are operating in a 3D consciousness level. They're following their survival impulses. They're following the basic fears and lower vibrational emotions that we get here until we realize that we're doing it. So they think they're doing the right things for themselves. Maybe it's selfish. Maybe they think they're doing the right things for their families, which is still somewhat selfish, but we understand that a little bit better. But even some of them think that they're doing the right thing for the world. They don't realize that what they're doing is damaging the world. So we can understand why they're doing this, and we can look at them as the primitive beings that they are, and we can rise way above that and be at a higher vibrational level ourselves. So how do we overcome this? How do we change this? We don't try to change the world. We simply change ourselves. If we can move from the three-dimensional consciousness of fear and lower vibrational emotions to a 4D consciousness, which is really much easier than you might think. And one of the best ways to get there is to recognize that you are Source and that they are as well. And one of my favorite ways to do that is to actually set an alarm. Set off your phone every hour or two. And when that alarm goes off, go, oh, right, I am Source. Everyone is Source. I decided all of this. I chose this experience for us to have it. I created these amazing rocks here in Red Rock, Las Vegas. I created these unbelievable planets and stars and galaxies and nebula and black holes and all of these individuals and all the animals and all the things that exist, both good and bad. And we created those things because we're actually at, as Source, a 0 point of non-judgment. That all things matter, all things are interesting, all things are exciting, all things just exist. From the perspective of the 0 point of non-judgment, where we cannot suffer and we cannot thrive because we are Source, we're just infinite, we just are. From that perspective, all the different experiences that we get to have here on this planet are fascinating, they're interesting. A positive experience and a negative experience, to us as Source, as the Source consciousness, is essentially the same thing. They are both something that is from the perspective of the individual. From my perspective, if I injure my foot, I decide and discover that I'm suffering because I'm receiving a signal of pain from my injured foot. If I eat a delicious meal, then I feel the satisfaction of the taste, the flavors, and the satiation that I experience when I eat that meal. What's the difference between those two? How our brain interprets the stimuli. That's it. The only difference is from our individual and unique perspective that we can determine and decide whether something is good or something is bad. From a perspective where none of that is in play, the Master Source consciousness, where the Master Source consciousness cannot die, it lives on infinitely, then there are no systems that deliver the message of good or bad. Instead, it just is. And that is the 0 point of non-judgment. So moving into that place and recognizing that everything that exists is can help you immensely understand that actually we as Source are doing this to ourselves. We are intentionally taking on injury, taking on abuse. We're intentionally taking on success and taking on pleasure just to experience all of those things. So that is an amazing aspect of this life and can take you way far away from having to worry about and deal with and concern yourself with things that are way outside of your control. In the 5D perspective, we can access that 0 point of non-judgment with ease. We can operate there in every now moment. So we can easily observe the world as a giant experiment, a fascinating movie. But because we exist in a state of unconditional love, we unconditionally love everything that happens in the lower dimensions because they can provide growth, experience, and transcendence to ourselves as Source. So you can relax because all of the crazy things that are going on right now, especially at the recording of this video in 2020, or whenever you're watching it in the future, are fascinating. They're interesting. You created it as Source to experience it. And that is something that you can finally relax in the knowledge of, because this world, this experience is a temporary one. Your existence as Source is an infinite one. So yes, you're going to experience some problems, you're going to experience some negativity, abuse, pain, suffering, but you're also going to experience love and excitement and happiness and gratitude and success and thriving. All of the things are possible and likely for you to experience in this lifetime that you've chosen for yourself. We can't possibly know why we're experiencing all of these experiences. In many cases, these things have some great purpose. But from our limited 3D perspective, where we can only access the now moment with our basic senses can't possibly know what the future holds for us. However, if you move into the fourth and you move into the fifth, then you can start to access universal knowledge that's available to you at any time. And I have another video on this about turning inward that you can totally watch right here. So at this time, I'd like to go ahead and provide a fear relief activation. This is a simple and quick activation. If you are feeling that worry about a future experience, whether it be an upcoming election or some sort of threat of war or whatever it might be, then this will help you overcome your physiological response to that concern, because fear is simply a prediction of the future. You cannot be afraid of something that's happened in the past. You can't even be afraid of something that is happening right now. You can only be afraid of something that hasn't happened yet. And how good are we at predicting the future? We're terrible at it. If we were any good at all, we would all be Bitcoin billionaires. So understand that this creation of this emotion is simply to try to avoid any possibility. So our fear experience is widespread. We consider every possible thing that we could die from so that we could make sure that we avoid it. This is a very inefficient system, and as a result, very low percentage chance of the thing that you fear actually happening. But it doesn't matter how much I say that, because the feeling, the emotional side of the fear experience can't be logicked away necessarily. So this will help remove that negative emotional experience so that your left brain can come in and say, right, there is nothing to fear. Everything is perfect. Everything we've created ourselves as source so that we can experience it. So I'm open to whatever that might be. Okay, at this time, go ahead and close your eyes and take a nice big deep breath. And relax as you exhale. Feel yourself sinking into the chair that you're sitting in. My activations are super simple. I'm simply going to say breath in. And when I do, you'll take a nice big deep breath, you'll hold it at the top, and you'll wait for me to say the key word, awaken. This word often comes across a little bit explosively, so just be aware. So removing the negative emotional experience from fear so that your mind can be clear and you can re-watch this video with a new, clearer head. Breath in. Awaken! Excellent. So when you're ready to experience this world as it was meant to be experienced, to handle the situations that come up to you with grace and with ease, because you are more than capable of dealing with it, of getting through it, and even thriving during it. When you're ready to do this, then you can open your eyes. Thanks so much for watching this video. It makes a big difference for you and for me, because I love to be able to help people as often as I possibly can. If you'd like to download another activation off of my website, there's one that will relieve nervousness. This is a little bit different than the fear activation, because in this case, maybe you're going to go speak in front of a group and you're nervous about it, or you're going to be interviewed on a radio show and you're nervous about it, or you're going to ask for a raise or ask someone out on a date and you're nervous about it. About 20 to 30 minutes before you're about to do the thing that you're nervous about, listen to this activation. Have it in your toolbox. Have it on your phone and ready at any time when you're about to have a nervous experience. You can just listen to it and feel that relief and be able to go into it with a clear mind. I'll provide a link in the description below so that you can download that. For any that's curious about where I am right now, I'm just outside of Las Vegas at Red Rock State Park. I spoke at an expo this past weekend, which actually gave me the idea to do this video because there were a lot of conspiracy theories and negative views about the way the world is that was talked about in this expo. And I noticed a lot of people that were super nervous about it. So I wanted to hopefully relieve some of your concerns and make your life a little bit smoother as we, at the time of this recording, move up to a very interesting election in the United States. So thanks again so much for watching this video. I highly recommend that you check out my other videos, that you click on the like and the subscribe. I'm making a new video every week because it pleases me so much to be able to help you. I look forward to every one of these videos. So thank you so much. I love you unconditionally. And I'll see you on the next video.